your tweet sounding.
Maybe I should turn off my phone because it goes off like constantly.
Hello, everybody. You are listening to Genesis Office Hours, episode number 31, and that sound you hear in the background is Greg and Mark's tweet decks alerting them to the tweet I just sent out. How you doing, guys?
Doing
Great.
good.
Nice to have you on. First timers for both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, of course, you're welcome any old time. Before we dive into the show, wanted to welcome everybody who is either listening to us live, watching us live, or might be catching us later on iTunes. Excuse me, a little bit of a there. If you would like to participate today, you can do that by tweeting using the hashtag GOHchat. Ask any questions you want of Mark or Greg. You can troll them, heckle them, really just whatever floats your boat. So today,
heckle Greg. Heckle Greg.
Okay, so
yeah.
if you have really sweet things to say it to Mark. And
Exactly.
If you have heckling comments, direct those to Greg.
Very good. I'll send you that check tomorrow, Carrie.
Well, speaking of checks, I do want to thank you for being an official sponsor of Genesis Office Hours. Did you like that segue?
That was nice. It was almost like we rehearsed it.
Yeah, I mean, you just threw me a softball, and I smacked that right out of the park. But seriously, do appreciate your guys supporting this show, and I love Desktop Server, so it's only natural to want to share that with my Office Hours guests. But so I'll start with a little story. I was at WordCamp Las Vegas last year. This was in December of 2013. And I had grabbed a slice of the worst, greasiest, like floppy cardboard pizza you could get. No offense to the Las Vegas organizers. It was just kind of gross pizza. And I was walking to find a place to sit and have lunch when all of a sudden I was intercepted by Greg Franklin. And my life has never been the same since. Drops the mic.
Wow.
Well, Greg, that was when you introduced me. That was my first time actually meeting you, but that was also the first time that I had gotten to see what Desktop Server is, what it can do. I'd heard of it, but never actually seen it. And you, had your laptop handy and showed me the ropes. And seriously, like as soon as I got back.
Uh-oh. Are you there, Greg?
I am.
I think we lost Carrie.
I do.
All right, fill in the rest of the story, Greg.
The rest of the story is I demoed the desktop server for her, and she was impressed, and I'm hoping she will demo it today, which I think she's going to, as soon as she comes back on.
And her life has never been the same since.
That's what she said. Well, at least we save her lots of time.
Wow. This is like live TV. It's like,
Where's the teleprompter when you need it, right?
I know. Okay, so tell us some more about Carrie, since she's not on. Let's make up some stories about her.
Make up some stories about Carrie?
Yeah, let's make up some stories about Carrie.
Well, I can tell you, she is a great tweeter. She posts stuff on Twitter before I even hear about it. So she's definitely one of the ones I follow, especially if I'm at a WordCamp. Like when we were at Dallas, she was great. I was kept up to date on what was going on through the whole thing. And Dallas was a great WordCamp, so I guess we should mention that. You went to Ann Arbor, right?
I went to Ann Arbor. I was fortunate enough to speak, and I got the time slot that I like the best, which is first thing in the morning.
And you brought your son?
And I brought Eli, my son, 9 years old. Awesome. In fact, I think he will be applying to speak and getting into some of the more prestigious camps. than I can get into, because he was pretty awesome. He kind of stole the show, so that was neat. And yeah, I did a session on how to best handle a WordCamp, especially if it's your first time, and actually stole a thing or two from Carrie for that presentation, because she had written a nice blog post about the same thing.
Oh, good, good. And then upcoming is San Francisco, and I guess we're all three going. We were just talking about that all three of us are going. So that's excellent. I hope to see lots of people there. Hopefully lots of Genesis people.
Yep. Okay, so someone just tweeted, I'm sorry to interrupt, someone just tweeted and said, quit talking and start showing what Desktop Server is. So, yeah, Greg, do you have Desktop Server fired up on your Carrie was going to do a presentation of it, but I'm wondering, Greg, if you have it.
I do. Okay. Let me see.
You can do a screen share, and you can kind of show and talk about what Desktop Server is.
You bet.
Technology is great, except when it doesn't work. Hey, there we go.
So when Desktop Server, I don't know how much everyone knows, so I'll go ahead and start off with it. Desktop Server is an application. It runs on your computer, whether that be a Mac or a PC. It allows you to run WordPress locally. It mimics a web host. So it's like you're running your own web host locally. And to get started, when you first start up Desktop Server, you'll get this main menu. And on the main menu, you've got options like stopping and starting the web or database services. You can remove, copy, or move an existing website, create a new development site, which is the first thing we're going to show. You can even edit subdomains and things like that for multi-site. And you can also import, export, and share, which we'll talk about in a minute. So to create a new development website, all you have to do is hit Next.
Oh, Carrie's back.
Yay!
Hey, you guys don't even need me. Carry on. Carry on.
Oh, no.
Do you want me to carry on, or shall we let you go ahead and take it back?
No, go for it, because, I mean, you're just diving right in. Let's do this.
All right, so what I did is I clicked on create a new site, because as you're going to get started, you want to go ahead and create a new one, and you can go ahead and give that site any name that you want. So we'll just use example, we'll name it example 3, because I'm pretty sure I have example already used. And then you can choose a blueprint, and this is one of the most powerful features in Desktop Server. And what it does is it allows you to create your own blueprint, and that blueprint could contain WordPress 4.0, it would have you as a user, your permalinks already set up, maybe your favorite plugins installed, and since this is a Genesis group, definitely your Genesis specific plugins, your Genesis theme, and any child themes you want. Some Genesis users will actually have a blueprint with all of the child themes they own and just delete the ones they don't need. I'm not sure how Carrie does that. How do you do that, Carrie?
I usually just do the Genesis framework and then install the child theme as needed. That way it saves me the hassle of not having to delete the things that I don't want. Right.
So we're going to do one. I actually do have a Genesis one, but I'm actually going to we'll do the first one, which is my WP4.0, which has more of the items that we just talked about in it. I think my Genesis only has the Genesis theme in it, so I'm going to use this one first. You can choose where you'd like to store this website on your computer. I'm on a Mac, so this is going to be, actually it's saved off onto a separate hard drive for me, but you can click the Browse button and pick wherever you want to store that. If you want it to be a multi-site, you can check the box down there. We're not going to do a multi-site. I'm just going to go ahead and hit Create. And what it does next, hit Create. There we go. Okay, so it's going to create the folder. It's going to put all the files that make up WordPress in that folder. It's going to write an entry into the virtual host file for Apache. It's going to create the database, put all the files in there for the database. And you can see it was done before I could even complete my sentence. So there you go. We're going to hit Next. It's going to give you a link to that, www.example3.dev. I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to bring the screen over. It was on my other screen. And here's our new site. So we're ready to get to work. And just to show you what it for us. Let's go ahead and log into the dashboard. And right away, you can see it had me set up as a user because I can actually log in. And if we come down and we look at like the settings and the permalinks, the default is usually that P equals 123, but because we've already set it in our blueprint, it came up as the post name. And then if we look at plugins, we can see that there's a bunch of plugins already loaded. And I can tell you from my own experience with using Gravity Forms, you will actually save 5 clicks just doing it with the blueprint because you don't have to install, you don't have to go into Gravity Forms, you don't have to go up there and click on settings and then add in the license key or anything like that. It's already done for you, so that saves you all those steps. So that is all the big time-saving things that you can do. The other thing I want to mention with Desktop Server is that you can import. So if you have a client that comes to you and says, I have a WordPress website, but I don't want you to touch the live site. I want you to work on it, but don't touch the live site. So you can use several different tools to be able to get that site and import it into Desktop Server. My favorite is Duplicator. It's free. You can get it off the repository. It makes a package which contains all the files and the database. You can download that to your desktop and then import it into Desktop Server. And what Desktop Server will do is it scrubs it. So it goes through all the files and the database, and it checks to see, you know, if your domain.com, it gets changed to whatever you named it locally. So if you named it example3.dev, it will scrub every single link and all the files in the database so that it becomes all local and everything works. And then you can do all your changes and make and add things, do anything that you want to do. And the next step is you can go ahead and deploy. And deployment is quite simple also. You go up to whoever your host is. Most hosts now have a one-click install for WordPress. You click on that, it installs WordPress, and then you install Desktop Server's plugin. Come back to your desktop and do an export, and it will copy an entire package up to that site and replace all of that desktop, that WordPress site that you had put in there. It just kind of treats it as a little holding container until this one gets deployed. And it does that scrubbing in reverse. So instead of example3.dev, it's going to scrub everything up to be domain.com up there in your site.
That is super cool. So like all the links that are in widgets or wherever they are on the site, they're just automatically going to get updated as part of that deployment process?
That's correct.
Love it. And for the record, you just managed to spin up a new local WordPress install in the time it took me to connect to my neighbor's Wi-Fi. So.
Is that what you're doing? Hijacking your neighbor's Wi-Fi?
That's how you got back on through your neighbor.
I literally, I mean, I'm not kidding. The skid marks are still out front where the cable guy just left. It was that. He literally just left 10 minutes ago, and already my connection's back down. I think I just need to buy a MiFi or something to
Boy, they couldn't have timed that any better, huh?
Oh, man, if only my cable were as consistent as Desktop Server, we would not have these issues.
Wow, that was nice.
We've got some questions. Greg, did you talk about blueprints while I was off the air?
A little bit.
Okay. So blueprints are basically a way of, you get your perfect ideal install, all the, your permalinks like this, any API keys that you need for, your MailChimp or your Gravity Forms, that kind of stuff, and then you can replicate that over and over. So Jackie had the question of how easy is it to update a blueprint? Do you actually even update a blueprint, or do you just create a new blueprint? Oh, we lost Greg. So.
We lost Greg. Okay. The answer to that is you create a new blueprint, and the easiest way to create a new blueprint is through the export function within Desktop Server, and what you do is the export function will create a zip file, and you drop that zip file into your blueprints directory, which on a Windows machine is on c:\\examp lite/blueprints, and then on a Mac it is in applications/examp/blueprint. And it's pretty easy, as a matter of fact.
Cool. I do want to pause 1 second before we get back into the awesomeness that is some of the desktop server features and show you. Oh my gosh, we've got like Mark Inception. We've got 2 of you on here.
I am really sorry about this. We're having all kinds of technical goofiness.
Well, hey, the more the merrier. If we can get double Greg, double Mark, it's just a bonus.
As many times as I said I want to clone myself, this is not really what I had in mind. So hang on just a second. Okay.
So today we're doing a giveaway of some awesome desktop server T-shirts, which I will show you now. This is got the old Carl Cowboy Coder, and if you see this guy, point him in the direction of desktop server so that he can not be Carl Cowboy Coder anymore. But if you want to, I got 5 of these suckers to send to 5 of you. So if you go to carriedills.com/podcast and find today's episode, there's a raffle copter there where you can do your entry to give away. But thanks, guys, Mark and Greg, for providing the awesome T-shirts for our listeners today. That's awesome.
Oh, no problem.
You're welcome.
And for the record, Carrie is actually the only person on the planet at this point that's actually held one of those T-shirts in her hand. So we haven't even held those in our hands yet.
I've stuffed my pillow full of them.
Okay.
And, I just lay on a bed of desktop server tees.
Are they all soft?
Yeah. So they were unfortunately supposed to be here for WordCamp DFW this past weekend, where Greg was hanging out with us, and UPS, mishaps happen.
Just by one number.
Right? Yeah. And Mark, you were up at the Ann Arbor WordCamp.
I was up in Ann Arbor, that's correct. And we talked about that earlier, and I think I talked about it too long because people said get on with the demo. So I won't talk about it much more. Other than the cool thing for me was that my son was part of it and was very excited when he saw that Jeff Chandler from WP Tavern had written about him. So that was really cool for my son. It was neat to show my son what a true community looks like and how you can actually have a community atmosphere within a business atmosphere as well. And Eli had a great time. I can't wait to bring him to more WordCamps.
Cool. I heard he was a little show stealer with his sense of humor.
That much is true, and I'm okay with that. I will happily defer to my son any time of the day or week, because then I can be off on my own shenanigans while people are, it's the misdirection thing. So it works really well.
Nice.
Yeah.
We've got some great questions coming in, and some of them, I see your questions, and I acknowledge them, dear Twitter users, and a handful of them I'm going to defer till a little bit later in the conversation. One of them we had is talking about version control in Git, and I want to show you kind of the current state of the union of how I would handle that, and then ask you guys what might be coming down the pipeline in the future. How's that set up? Boop, boop.
That sounds good.
Okay, so we're going to try something scary, which Greg has already paved the way by doing his screen share, but I'm going to try a screen share on my end. And for those of you who end up catching this later on iTunes or whatnot, I'll try to describe best I can what's going on. All right, guys, can you see my screen?
We can.
Sweet. I will try to not navigate anywhere that I shouldn't. Let me.
Did you mean to show that screen, Carrie?
Oh my gosh. So I've got well, first of all, let me do let me pull up desktop server, fire it up. So we're starting up the database. Oops. We're firing up the server. And okay, so I've already got a blueprint site here that's running. It's got WordPress 4.0 in the latest version of Genesis, and I'll just call it GOH for today. And I don't know if you talked about this earlier, Greg, but there is, you can also create a multi-site network on here, which is pretty sweet. So we're creating this new site based off the blueprint. So when we get in here to goh.dev, and it's already got an admin user on there, so I can go straight and log in. And just want to show you. So themes, I've got the Genesis framework, and then just got the utility theme. I wanted to show it with a theme for version control purposes. And then plugins. I've just got my little stash of plugins that I like to have. I'll digress a second. If you are curious to get into the database, you just go to your local domain and type phpMyAdmin, and that goes straight into your database. So if you need to do any direct work there, you can. And let me ask you guys, Mark and Greg, like if I were to open up the table for this, I noticed that all my tables are prefixed with the standard WP underscore.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So if I'm deploying to, let's say, one of those fancy hosts that has, some other table prefix, what's my best protocol for handling that?
You could create a new blueprint, and in the blueprint, the wp-config-sample, you can change that to have whatever you'd like as far as the prefix. Mm-hmm. Not only that, but you can even put defines in there also, so that whenever you spin up a new site, it's going to use that prefix and any defines that you add.
Get out of town. I can do that?
Yes.
Yep. And so an example of a define is my favorite one. Is most people don't realize that when you first start up WordPress, it creates every single post that you do when you're doing changes to this page, and there's no end. It doesn't have a limit. So you could have 100 revisions, which would fill up the database and slow down their site. So you could actually put a define in your wp-config-sample that says revisions only 5. And so then it'll only create 5, and then the latest one would fall off, and the newest one would be the newest one. So you could do things like that. You can have it delete trash, all kinds of things. Whatever revision, whatever defines that you want to add, you could.
Sweet. And just a little screen share to show people what you're talking about. It's right. This basically that you would plop into
there
that
yes.
WP config. Okay, cool. So
you can find a whole list of defines on the codex, I believe. So yeah, you can go to town.
Sweet. Well, let's go back to my install here, and I'm just gonna. I don't even know what I just typed in. That was terrible. That's called trying to look at two screens and type on the other screen. I'm going to add just a little sample post. Desktop server, all word, woohoo, and publish it. Now I'm going to throw this under version control, and when we talk about version control, we're talking about doesn't have anything to do with the database or our content. We're talking about the actual files, and in this case, I want to throw my theme, the utility theme, under version control. Now, this is not any sort of lesson on GitHub or using Git. It's just a quick. I want to show you how I would do it. So I'm going to add a new repository. I'm going to find. My documents, websites, goh.dev. I'm going to go into my WP content, and my themes, and I'm just going to put utility under there, and I'm going to call this and there, it's done. So basically, if I were to open up any of these files, these theme files, and you know what, it's hard to talk and demo at the same time. Greg, you're just amazing that you can do this on a regular basis. So let me open up, let's just say my functions.php, and I'm just going to throw an extra line in there and save it. So now I can see that, well, of course this doesn't, of course it's not working as planned. But anyways, you could use that get UI to do that. But that has nothing to do with the server. I'm just, using get independently, and of course you could do the same thing with command line. I'm using get independently of desktop server. But let's go ahead and do a deployment. So I'm going to take, go back to my little beginning screen and say export. And I'm going to export and deploy. And I want to export this goh.dev. And I'm going to export it as, now I should do my final URL, right?
That's correct.
So this is going to be demo.carrydeals.net, which, by the way, let me just show you what that looks like right now. It looks like a big nothing, because that's exactly what's there, is a big nothing. And I'm going to direct deploy to an existing server. Oh man, now this is going to be fun, because password to that sucker. Okay, so there we go. Let's see, demo. There it is. Okay, so this is my admin login for demo.carrydeals.net, where there is already a WordPress install, and I've already got that desktop server plugin installed.
Excellent.
And so I'm just going to say, no, we don't really want anybody to find this. Purging is fine. I mean, there's nothing really there. And I want the whole thing, not just the database. So let's roll. And, if anybody needs to refill their coffee or, go watch some. Well, you don't even have time to watch a TV show because it's going to happen that fast.
It depends on how big your site is. We've deployed some fairly large sites, and of course that takes a while.
Is there, if this were to hiccup during the process, would you need to start it over, or would there? I mean, does it roll back to a pre-deployment state?
It will. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I was just going to say, what happens is it actually creates a subdirectory within your root, and it does not make any changes until all the files have been set up and it is confirmed that everything is good to go, and then it makes the switch. So when it does your direct deploy, you're actually only going to see maybe 5 or 10 seconds of downtime on your website because everything is done in a separate directory.
Sweet. You know what? And I'm hoping this is, again, a live demo. I didn't get to try it out beforehand. I'm hoping that I changed my table prefixes on the receiving end to BWP, but we're about to find out and see if that works or not.
We'll get to see an error if not.
Oh, well, okay. Fair enough. So tell me a little bit about, was Desktop Server kind of created to scratch your own itch?
It was, first of all, it was created by Steve Carnum, and this was really his brainchild. And in answer to your question, yeah, it was created from what he's told us. He created it to scratch his own itch, and I sort of suspect he didn't realize that it was the itch of many until after he created it, and it's kind of taken off since in a way that I don't think that anyone imagined it would. So long story short, yes.
Cool. Well, and clearly it's a need that's out there with just people like me and people like our listeners who are doing local development and wanting an easy way to push up to a server without having to crack open FTP and all that junk.
And Carrie, the reason I came on with Steve is because I am like you, a huge fan of Desktop Server. When I'm a developer, and when I was developing, there was so many times where I would need to test out just different plugins. For example, a client would come to me and say, "Hey, I want an event calendar." Well, if we go up on the repository right now, there's about 16 of them. So you'd have to look through them and try them out and see if they're going to work before will they do everything that the client wants, or at least be able to go back to the client and say, hey, here's your choices. This is the different plugins that are available, and they're going to do these items. Which one would you like to go with? The other thing I always like to stress is when we're talking about testing all the time is I like to pick on WooCommerce quite a bit, and that is WooCommerce. Every time they introduce their new version, it has a tendency to take down people's sites. So it's always good to maybe test your plugin first locally, make sure everything works, and then it's good to go up there and install it on your live site.
Perfect. Well, let's dive in to some of these questions. So the first one from Ben is, can Desktop Server do version control and Git hosting?
As you mentioned, it's really kind of a separate thing right now. Git runs all on its own, so you would create the site locally with Desktop Server, and then you could go ahead and initiate Git locally, and then do your connection to the repository, and you're good to go. So there are kind of two different pieces. Right now, it does not. Now there's plans in a future version to actually do some of that work for you. So when you spin up the site, it would initiate Git and do the connection to the repository. So that would be my answer.
All right. Mark, who would you say the target market is? Is it just is it primarily developers working on a lot of sites, or?
Boy, we really seem to hit that market where our target audience is fairly anywhere from beginner developers and designers to fairly advanced developers. Designers especially, it's a market that we've found to has been pretty successful for us, because designers just want to get their WordPress site up and running. They don't generally, there are some exceptions, there are those unicorns out there, but there are some exceptions where designers just want to get that thing running so that they can start their design process. And because of the simplicity of Desktop Server, they're able to do that. Of course, developers like it because there are some more advanced features that you can use with Desktop Server. So I would say, generally, I tell people that right now we're everything from beginners to pretty advanced. I'm going to bring up, I joke about Vagrant every now and then because that seems to be the one thing that we have people come and say, well, I use Vagrant, and there are some advantages to Vagrant. We are going to be addressing some of those advantages that Vagrant has in our next iteration, like being able to control your what type of server you're running, that type of thing, running off of a thumb drive, things like that. So yeah, we handle pretty much almost anybody who handles WordPress. That's kind of our target audience, I would say.
Well, all right. You've millions of potential customers then.
Hey, my dad even uses it, and my 9-year-old son, I gave it to him, and I didn't even give him directions, and he had a WordPress site up and running on his own computer in about 5 minutes. He had it figured out in no time. So.
Last week we had Corey Miller from iThemes on, and he talked about part of the goal with making iThemes Exchange was that his mother, quote unquote, I mean, but seriously, quite literally, his mother could use it. And so now you've got your family. It seems to be the thing. Like if our children and our parents can use it, then we've created a fairly usable product.
Right, and I'd love to say that my dad is, one of these old guys who's not very technical, but my dad's actually pretty technically savvy. So I can't say that, but and since he brought up Corey, I'd just like to send a shout out to him because he's been a big supporter of our product as well.
He actually his trainer actually mentions Desktop Server when he's training.
Right.
Holla! All right, that was the official. That was the official shout out. So let's talk about one follow up question we had on the Git, and Ben, this is to address your question. So desktop server kind of does. There's main pieces of functionality in my mind, and you guys can totally step in if I'm off base. But there's the part where you spin up installs based off a blueprint. And that, even if you, and then there's the deployment part. So even if you don't use the deployment feature of Desktop Server, still just the ability to rapidly spin up sites that have all your customizations already built in is a big time saver and value. So Ben, to your question, if you're using Tower or some other version control and then using Beanstalk for deployment, then where Desktop Server fits in is sort of in that MAMP replacement or your local install replacement. So you just kind of just skip the deployment part in that scenario, at least at this point.
I agree totally, Carrie.
Okay. Phew, because man, I hate it when we have violent disagreements here on Genesis. So let's talk about, we've demoed how to create a new site and then push that to completely replace an online WordPress installation. But what happens if I, A, want to pull down a WordPress site to work on locally, or B, take a site that I've already deployed and then redeploy it partially. Let's say I update a couple files. Is Desktop Server the right tool for that, or talk to me?
Parts of it are. So I mean, getting a live site and bringing it down, absolutely. We mentioned while you were off air, Carrie, that you can use several different plugins or tools, I should say, to be able to do this. My favorite is Duplicator. It's free. You can use it. Backup Buddy, Backup WP Up works, Manage WP, and I think, and Infinite WP. So any that create basically an archive can be imported into Desktop Server. And you could actually.
Dog is unhappy.
I'm sorry about my dog. He's completely blind and he thinks he's a guard dog, so I apologize.
And Carrie, that's something if you wanted to show, you could actually do with that site that you just imported up. You could go ahead and log into the dashboard and add Duplicator and create a package, and then show how to bring it back into Desktop Server if you'd like to.
Oh, okay. Well, you've just that's the after office hours. So let's see. One comment I've had, somebody said that Desktop Server is on their shopping list, and I should have mentioned this at the top of the hour. Desktop Server, drum roll, is free. All this amazing, I realize I sound like a used car salesman, and Matt Medeiros, that's for you. But Desktop Server is free, and now there are limitations to that free version. So there is, if you pay more for a version and you get extra functionality like the multi-site and some other cool stuff. But you guys are giving this away, which just amazes me. Even at a stripped down level to give away, it's a really cool product. So there you go, Ben. You don't have to save up too many donuts unless you want the pro version. Will you guys? Okay, now this
and the pro version is worth every penny.
Forgive me, everybody who. Okay, let me just tell you, if you're listening, go buy it now before they raise the price, because you guys should seriously raise the price, or look at. I don't know, but it's all I know is that is one of the along with Migrate DB Pro have probably been my best spent money on tools for this year. So totally worth it.
And Greg and I will both tell you that other than our text editor, when we were doing development in earnest, Desktop Server was probably our second most used piece of software. and that was before it had some of the features that it has now. So it's really nice to be part of a company where the product we represent is pretty much, I mean, we think it's as awesome as everyone else does, so that's really nice.
Cool. And people who have been listening to my show for a while know that I love to pimp affiliate links. It's part of how I keep the lights on around here. But just for the record, Desktop Server does not have an affiliate program. I am not an affiliate. I get nothing other than just saying that they're a product I love and I'm happy to support. So let's get on to some more questions. Can we talk? I teased a little bit about 4.0. Can we talk about that?
Maybe a little bit.
Maybe. Do we need to?
4.0 is our next major iteration of Desktop Server. It is a complete change in infrastructure and architecture from the way that current Desktop Server runs. It will still appear as a standalone app and will run as such, but it's actually built, one of its great things is it's built upon WordPress. So it's a standalone application that runs on WordPress. That allows for us to create kind of an ecosystem built piece of software where you can build plugins for it or extensions for it and make it do all kinds of crazy things. Greg, did you want to add anything to that?
Only that, I mean, the reason that we went with this architecture is we wanted to keep it familiar. We really listened to Matt Mullenweg when it came to him saying he wanted WordPress to be an app, to be able to be that kind of a tool. And that's why we went this way, and we really listened to our clients about what they want to see in Desktop Server. And that's the interesting thing about that is everyone, developers, designers, end users, all have different ways they do workflows, and we understand that, and so we're always listening and looking at ways to, how can we make that work, like Git, and like how do we make it work through, and we now have all these different kinds of web hostings where we have managed WordPress sites, and they work differently, like WP Engine, and so we want to be able to have plugins available to solve all these types of different workflows for people and add a lot more flexibility, a lot more control, even to the level that a developer could write his own plugin to work with Desktop Server. So that's all going to be in there. And we have currently on the board, I think we have like over 40 different plugin ideas that we're going to be making for.
And that's just what's in our heads, let alone the heads of what other creative developers will be able to do.
That's correct.
How big is your team?
It's 3 of us.
Okay, so if we break down those ideas per person, we need to ship you much coffee, is what I'm hearing.
That cloning aspect you were talking about, Mark needing to be cloned, he does need to be cloned.
if only it was as simple as clicking a mouse button. Yeah.
Well, all right.
The one other thing I want to mention about 4.0 is that we will also have Linux capabilities with 4.0. So it will be completely cross-platform between Mac, Windows, and Linux. Currently, Desktop Server is only compatible with Windows and Mac.
Okay. That reminded me of one other question that has been asked, and I want to get to, but before I get to that, and it's a question about using Desktop Server with non-WordPress sites. But let's talk a little bit more about that process, because I know people are curious about it, how that round trip works, how circular it is to push, to get to pull back down the latest, and I know we're talking about Git and some things, but can you just kind of clarify for people that aren't using version control, or how they can use Desktop Server or how they cannot use Desktop Server to send partial updates or pull back down a fresh database?
Desktop server will deploy the entire package or just the database. But if it's specific files, that is not available yet. One thing that we get asked a lot is the ability to basically sync a live site to a local site, where you make a change on the local site and you want just that change to go up, or on the live site that your user creates that and they make a change. That is what we like to call the Holy Grail, and that would be, it's talked about, it's currently something that we want to build, and when we do, it's going to be amazing, because that's something everybody is looking for. So currently, right now, we deploy the entire package, or we can deploy just the database. One thing about MigrateDB, Carrie, I believe you were mentioning, is it does have the ability to migrate a single table, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's its plus on that. So just that type of thing. But as far as the round trip goes, you can definitely, if you've got a live site, you can go up, you can grab it using any of the tools that we mentioned, bring it, import it into Desktop Server, work on that site. When you're done, deploy that site, and it will replace the site that's up there online. And you can do that as many times as you'd like, over and over again.
Now, what most people do if they've got a really active site, let's say people go in and they comment very regularly, and by the time you've downloaded the site and worked on it, there are 5,000 new comments on your live site. They just bring the site down to test whatever functionality they need to test, and then once they get that working, they just FTP upload the files that they've changed. That way nothing changes with the database. So it's just tested on their local site to make sure that things work. And this is very common if a new plugin comes up with an update, or WordPress core gets replaced with a new major revision. That's the standard way that most people do their changes and keep it within their workflow without affecting the live site too terribly much.
All right. We want the Holy Grail.
we do too.
Okay, so we had a great question. What about non-WordPress sites? Does Desktop Server work with that?
There's a blueprint called blank. Is it just say blank, Mark? I think it just says blank.
Yeah, there's just a blank blueprint.
And it will spin up. It writes into the Apache record so that the domain name .dev will exist, and it creates the folder, and it creates a database if they need it. So they could immediately drop the files into that folder and start working on a straight flat, a flat website like all HTML, or if they actually wanted to do some PHP stuff and hook into the database, they still could do that also.
And I just want to also say that I did, and I wish I could remember exactly what I did mess with a Joomla quote-unquote blueprint once before, trying to install using Desktop Server. It did everything right except for the database, and I had to do a little bit of creative database work in order to make it work. But I did get it working, and it wasn't a lot of brain damage, but there was a little bit. Now with 4.0, there is talk that we'll be able to do things like handle other CMS options such as Joomla and Drupal and things like that. And of course, someone could write a plugin for that.
Yes, it could be a plugin. That's correct.
Do you accept or plans to take third-party plugins? I mean, if somebody wanted to write something specific for you guys and integrate it?
We're counting on it.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. And we've just had perhaps the most important question of the Hangout yet. When or what is the ETA on 4.0?
I'm sorry, are we out of time?
We're experiencing static. I think my internet connection is going on. Well, how about will it be before the year 2018?
I didn't hear what year you just said, but I hope so.
I think she actually did break up. I think there was a technical difficulty there.
Literally did just break up right then. I couldn't have asked for it. So here's the thing. I'm gonna Greg, you might kill me later, but that's okay. I think it's all right. We had a long discussion yesterday because with software development, things don't tend to go quite as smoothly or as quickly as anyone would like. And the discussion did turn to, what are we going to answer when people say, when is it going to come out? Because the truth of the matter is we've been working on Desktop Server 4.0 since the beginning of this year. It was actually, we had concept at the end of last year and started working on it at the beginning of this year. And because of the complete change in architecture and everything, it has been a challenge. We're currently in what we like to call closed beta testing on it, but we're not ready to put anything out until we have feature complete capabilities with 4.0, meaning that it has to, at the very least, offer everything that the current iteration 3.x handles. All that to say, in a long roundabout way, we're not really ready to give a date that it's going to be ready. But I can tell you that we're making progress every single day, and part of the conversation yesterday is when the new website goes live, which is going to happen within the next couple of weeks, we're actually going to have some blog entries where we show where we are with things so that people can see the progress that's being made on 4.0.
All right, I'll take that. We did
and
have
I
one
should also add with the new website, we are going to have an affiliate program.
I know some people that might be interested. Just
yeah, well, who would that be, Carrie?
And I did want to. I tweeted it out, but for anybody who's listening to this later, you guys have offered up a 20% coupon code for Office Hours listeners. Thank you very much. Very cool. So it's CDILS, CDILS -GOH. When you go to the ServerPress.com and want to pick up a copy of Desktop Server Premium. So cool. Thanks, guys. And then, so when this new website comes, there was a comment earlier that your documentation is a little bit cumbersome. Is that getting an overhaul?
It is.
And we agree.
Yeah. Yeah. We've actually... the problem when you have a company that's run by 3 developers is that we never go to our own documentation. I wouldn't say never, but the reality is the site has grown. We have a ton of documentation, but it's not as well organized as we'd like. We have actually hired somebody to get an extra set of eyes on our documentation, and she's going to get us all straightened out. So the new website will look a lot better when it comes to documentation.
And Mark is making videos quite regularly now also, so you'll see we like to provide them with an actual video showing the steps to get
if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see that we have videos that hopefully help you out. And we're always looking for suggestions on new videos that you'd like to see as well.
Yeah, the videos are awesome, and I'll post some links to those in the show notes. But if you things like how to create a blueprint, how to deploy specifically to certain hosts like WP Engine or Flywheel, you guys do have videos in there. So looking forward to trolling your new site.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it being up as well.
Couple questions about cost. Lucas wants to know: do you offer discounts for premium renewals, or is it just sort of the same each year?
No, we do offer a discount for renewals, 25% off. So yes.
Correct.
Sweet. All right. And then what about if, let's say, now again, we're not holding anybody to timetables, but I bought Desktop Premium this past December. And let's say that 4.0 drops before my renewal comes up. Will I be able to automatically update for or upgrade for free? Is that included in my?
Yes, all upgrades, even if we jump to Desktop Server version 13.6 from 3.x, you pay your yearly annual membership and you are entitled to all updates during that year.
Cool. All right. Well, there you have it. Hopefully, if we've missed any questions, go ahead and please send that again over to #GOHchat, and we'll try to get them in under the wire here. Guys, I know you were both at different WordCamps this past weekend. Where will we see you next out in the wild?
San Francisco.
And then I'm going to be in Toronto, when is that, November? And I'll be speaking there. And I may be in Vegas after that.
All right.
I think. I may be sick of the winter. I'm in Wisconsin, so I may be sick of the snow by then. So by December.
You know, word has it that you don't even need socks in Vegas in December.
But I'd feel naked without them.
Hey, whatever you have to pack, but just throwing that out there that you might not need it.
Okay, good to know.
Carrie, where are we gonna see you?
I will be at San Francisco. Very excited to be returning for a second year there. Not speaking, just getting to soak in all the goodness. And then there's a possibility I'll be at Las Vegas. I'm waiting to see how my December schedule shakes out, but we'll hopefully get back to that camp again. And of course, Greg, you set my expectations so high with having met you there last year that it may be impossible to top working at Las Vegas again, but I don't know.
Greg will show you 4.0.
I may have 4.0. I won't say which WordCamp I saw it at, but it might have been in Austin. No, you know what? I think I dreamed that. I think I was just so excited about it that I probably dreamed it. Yeah, I couldn't even tell you what it looked like. Before we roll out, wanted to remind folks, if you'd like to be in the drawing to win a sweet Desktop Server t-shirt, head over to carriedills.com/podcast, find today's episode, and that it's a little raffle copter thing where you can tweet about it, follow DesktopServer on Twitter, all that good stuff. And that ends, I think, tonight at midnight. So if you want to play, get your entry in before then. Let's see, and again, even I know we're talking all about Desktop Server, but would like to thank you guys for officially sponsoring Genesis Office Hours. Really appreciate you guys underwriting that so that we can bring great content to the listeners at no cost. So y'all rock.
We're happy to do it.
Sweet. Okay, we do have a little question here from Devender. He wants to know, he uses WAMP for offline development. Do I have to remote it to try Desktop Server? Oh, remove it, excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
No, you can still have MAMP on or WAMP on your system. In fact, I have a Windows machine that I have it on my system, and you just disable it or you don't run it. The real key is that your port 80 is not taken up by any other process.
Sweet. All right. Well, I'm going to also thank you for holding down the fort and
that was fun. That was fun.
Hosting the show in my absence. So, you guys can just chime in or just log on to my Hangout every week, and then if I get taken offline, you can just keep it.
If you ever need a guest host, we'd be happy to come on and have people tweet to us what we should talk about.
Well, fortunately, I have wonderfully opinionated listeners, so we would have no shortage of things to talk about, I feel certain. All right, well, thank you guys for another great episode of Genesis Office Hours, episode number 31. If you want to catch the show notes or the replay, you can do that at carriedills.com. Don't forget about a 20% coupon for Desktop Server Premium, and that is cdills-GOH. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Mark. Mark, let's start with you. Where can people find you on the web to heckle you at their convenience?
Mostly on Twitter, which I use as I use that mostly as my personal assistant. And what I mean by that is when I go to WordCamps, I get on the plane, and by the time I land, my whole schedule has been planned by everyone else. And you can find me at marc, M-A-R-C, Benzak, B-E-N-Z-A-K. I don't do a lot of tweeting, but that's where you can find me.
Okay. And Greg, how about you?
Again, on Twitter also, you can find me at Greg Franklin, and it's GreggFranklin.
All right. Well, you guys rock. It's good to see you, and I'll see you in person in a couple weeks out in San Francisco. So
Sounds
until
good.
then.
Thank you, Carrie.
All right. We'll see you. Thank you, Carrie. Have a great day.
Bye.